Welcome, everybody, to Coaches Parley, episode number 5. Shawn's finished dinner. Ryan's got a beautiful light behind him. And, of course, Mike is glowing as always. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Thank you. Got a full line. I love it when I have a full line. Scoring line 1, NHL 91 style. Shawn, what jersey are you wearing? I'm trying to figure that out.
Old school style Trail Smoke Eaters.
Wow. That's Trail BC?
Yes, sir. I was
I
was the broadcaster there for 4 years, and there's very few teams with the senior teams, at least back in the day, now junior, that have the historical significance the Smoke Eaters do. Last to win the World Championship in 1961, coming back to beat the Russians, Norm Lenardon's late goal. A senior team. You think about that. In 1961, only 11 years before the Super Series against the best players in Canada that took Russia, or the Soviet Union took them to the absolute limit. And 11 years before that, a senior team from Trail beat them to win the World Championship wearing these jerseys. Well, they wore the Canada jerseys at the World Championship, but that was their logo at the time.
I'm glad I got the history lesson. I did not know that. Ryan, how are you doing in Toronto? Anything new update? Are we in the day 14 to 28 now, 15 to 28, and potentially seeing hockey, or what's the plan now?
Well, there's been lots of talk, lots of movement in terms of what Junior A hockey Tier 2 is going to look like here in Ontario. Not a lot of movement OHL-wise, but they are saying that some Tier 2 is going to get training camps opening up December 27th, which with some hopes of games starting January 15th. The issue is what the format that these games are going to look like, and it doesn't look like hockey at all, really. It actually looks really sad, to be honest with you.
Wow. We'll get more into that as we talk about potential seasons and what's going on. Mike, we've had some preseason hockey finally in the SJ. What were the initial thoughts, comments, real quick, around those small towns of Saskatchewan?
I was in Melville on Friday night for their game against Yorkton, and the first thing I thought of as I was watching the game was what Harry said in the last show that we did, where he says, it feels pretty normal, and I would echo that. I thought it was quite normal, aside from the fact there's only 150 people there, but the hockey was very, very normal, and actually quite intense, because for a lot of these kids, it's the first game that they played since March, whatever, and they were hungry to play. And it was, for a preseason game, it was fun to watch. And I did the broadcast on Hockey TV for Melville. It was fun for me to even call the game. It did a lot for my mental health, to be honest with you. So I can't imagine what it did for the boys to play, for the coaches to coach, for the referees to officiate, for the penalty box people to do their thing. I think, mentally, if they felt anything near what I did, it was a healthy thing to have on the weekend for everybody.
Harry, traveling out to Verdun this past weekend, outside of the endings in the game, the conclusions, what did we see from the teams participating, the fans? How was the vibe in the rinks?
It was great. I mean, if you've been to Verdun, they have a really nice rink. It's pretty new. And from the second warm-up started, I remember just being up in the crowd and looking around, and I go, this is awesome. The crowd was good. I don't know what capacity, what they were at, but it was, it's a big rink, so they hold a decent amount. And if it's half, they had, as much as they could have. And I know it was great. Like Mike just said, it feels really normal, and Verdun's a great place to play. And I was actually really excited to be there and within that rink and with fans, and it was a great experience. And then here, even on Saturday, Winkler, we do pretty well, as much as we can hold, and and get the home crowd going a little bit. It was 2 fun nights.
2 fun nights. Shawn, I know you're busy on the campaign show. You getting a little nervous?
No. Running for school board is not exactly high on everyone's list of important elections these days. We just had a provincial election in Saskatchewan. The U.S. federal election's going on. People are running for mayor and council. I would bet you that 75% of people don't even know that there's a school board election.
And here we are trying to foster the next generation, right?
I
Isn't that
know.
incredible, Shawn? I don't know. Anyway, we'll be right back with the first period and so talking about fans in the stands right after this. Okay, so we're starting to see hockey return. Unfortunately, not in Ontario, but we are seeing some minor hockey all over Canada. When it comes to the fans, it's great to see them in the stands. We build on that emotion. We play off their emotions. But in terms of financial stability, Mike, I want to start with you because we've talked about percentages. Right now in the preseason, they're not getting the full capacity they rightfully need to maintain any type of financial stability over the course of a regular season.
No, and we still don't really know what's going to happen for the regular season, although the SJHL is moving ahead as though they're going to be allowed to have increased numbers. At the time of this taping on Tuesday, October 27th, the SJHL released a 50-game regular season, which will start on November 6th and will go until, I believe, April the 3rd, and then playoffs after that. And so, for me, and I think, the teams that I've talked to, 150 for sure isn't enough, but I think they would be willing to play ball is the right phrase to use with public health, but I think that they would be willing to say, okay, let's get the regular season started and let's go to 250 for the opening weekend and see how that works out. And if that is okay, then why don't we just kind of keep dipping our toe in until we get to whether it's 50% capacity or whatever it is that, is being talked about. I know, the last I had heard was that 50% capacity max, but with social distancing. So most rinks won't hold 50% when you take into account the social distancing with, 6 feet apart and every other row and things of that nature. So, 50% really becomes 35%, I guess, at some point. But, for me, we got to get going. And if you can get 250 in the building for the first couple of home games, yeah, you're losing money. But it's a start. And I think anybody that thinks someone's going to snap a finger somewhere and you're going to have 700 fans in the rink, not happening. So, if we can dip our toe in and maybe by December 1st, you get to that point where, it's the 50% capacity type of thing with social distancing and things are going well. I think that, I can't speak for them, but I personally would think that everyone should be happy with that.
Ryan, we haven't even started Tier 1, Tier 2 junior hockey in Ontario. I want to ask this question. Is it viable if you can't allow the fans in the stands to ask for sponsorship money, to ask for grants, to ask for players to potentially pay out part of their season? Because if you're being drafted this year or if you're aging out this year and it means that much to you to play, would you dip into your own pocket and play this season out, Ryan?
Well, I think the business models that are in Western Canada compared to Ontario are completely 100% different. After coaching the Blizzard last year and seeing how they handled their budget compared to the NOJHL and all the other teams here in Ontario, out here it's a business, right? Like there it's a business where it's a business to make money here. So I know a lot of these owners are not really interested in throwing away money out of their own pockets just to have a season. I know that if I was an owner of a hockey team, which I've also done in the past myself, I'm not interested in losing a nickel. So, I'm going to be, putting that payments back towards the players. And then now you're at a kind of a crossroads. Are those players going to want to dip into their pockets and pay, a full fee? Are you a 20-year-old wanting to pay a full fee of 4-on-4 hockey with no face-offs and referees don't really do anything, and you're basically playing a glorified shinny game? Do you want to be paying money for that? I can't see the hockey out here really being overly happy, because I know the teams in the Eastern Conference in the OJ, they do well because they have good attendance, but the teams that are in the GTA in the Toronto area, they're lucky to have 100 people in the stands most nights. There's the odd exception, but from a financial standpoint, everything is based on player fees out here, and I just can't see people wanting to go over and above what their budget's already tight at.
Regardless of being a business, Shawn, everyone's got that, that soft spot in their heart, that feel-good story, those heartstrings that are being pulled, saying, if we don't have hockey, these kids aren't going to have a chance to play, a chance to see their dreams go forward. That crossroad that Ryan talked about, Shawn, why is it? How would a fan bolster or pay a little bit more to make sure that they can sit in the stands, but also see their team be somewhat viable? And from a team perspective, could they go to a community and say, hey, we're going to be short 6 figures if we don't see 100 extra fans in the stands? It's not because you're here or you're not here. It's because we just can't be financially viable. Like, all of these scenarios come across the play, Shawn. Give me an idea or a sense that, halfway through a regular season per se, we aren't up to 250 or 300. What does the team have to do to say to its community, we might not be around next year?
Well, we have seen at different places in different markets things like lotteries and fundraisers and telethons to support teams before. So is that a possibility? Certainly. But the challenge will be, while other people are also going through very difficult times and charities are suffering from low fundraising totals, if that is the case, it's tougher for a hockey team to ask than during normal times, perhaps. I'm not sure. It's a very unique scenario. And can you ask a community for help? You absolutely can. You can ask a business community for help. And, you mentioned the thing, can businesses be asked to sponsor a team if there won't be fans in the stands? If you get creative, you would have to find a different way to honor that business. Yes, I'll give you a rink board and we'll publicly announce your sponsorship, or we'll give you some social media love, or we'll include you in our web broadcast somehow. There's just got to be other ways that you connect the business with your community. And then on top of that, there's the element of you're helping make this team possible. So, fundraising elements like that are possible, but teams will have to get creative in finding ways to tie in corporate partners, I think, because just doing a full-on community ask is going to be tougher these days.
Harry, what have the Winker Flyers been doing here?
We're only down to 20 home games, so of course we have to up prices a bit. And people understand that. Like, I don't think we were asked for the world. You can buy a VIP pass, $275 gets you into 20 games, or tickets are $15, which were originally, I want to say 12, and we used to let kids under the age of 12 in for free. Well, you can't have parents bringing 8 kids now for free and take up capacity. So everybody who enters the building has to pay $15. It's still cheaper than going to a movie, right? So, I think we haven't had too much of a pushback. Like, we've been at 400 every game. There's advertising, we have an app out. So, any creative way to get advertising out there, like Shawn was saying, through social media, we've been doing good. And unfortunately, our marketing guy has said if this was a normal year, we'd be doing exceptional. We've kind of got things on track. And so, we are losing, money like everybody else, but we're doing a good job over here.
I think really in Saskatchewan, if every team was allowed 400 fans, you find a way to make it work. And, whether it's $15, I've said 20. I still believe your diehards are your diehards. And I know even for me, with my role, I don't buy tickets because I've got a league pass and I'm media half the time. I'm a league official half the time. And, when I went to Melville on Friday, I said, I'll do your hockey TV for you and I'll still give you $15. Like, I think your diehards are your diehards and they get it. And unfortunately right now you can't really worry about the peripheral fan or the what do we call them? The fair weather fans. You can't really worry about them right now. I think your diehards are going to support you. They understand what's going on. And, if you're allowed 400 fans and if you think you can make it work off of $15 or even $20, I think most teams are willing to give that a shot. But the other thing, and, not to hog the airtime, but, in the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars are putting 25% capacity in their football stadium, but they've actually found, and I know it's Jacksonville and we can make a joke about it, but they've actually found that it hasn't been easy to put 17,000 fans in their football stadium because the fans just aren't comfortable. And that comes back to what I've said all along. Put the onus on your customer to make the choice. And if you're allowed 400, 500 fans, you actually may find that in some places the fans don't want to go. They're not willing to do it. Like I know in Yorkton, where we've had, and people like to call it an outbreak of 30 cases. But in Yorkton, some people are spooked. They cancel their hair appointments. They cancel their car appointments for oil changes, and they don't go to the restaurants anymore. So, I'm curious. I mean, if Yorkton was allowed 400 fans, would they get 400? And the answer is I don't know.
I think the other thing, price is often an overrated thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few years ago when I first got to Swift Current, the Broncos did $2 Tuesdays because their Tuesdays always sucked. And at first, they got 22, 23, 2,400 fans for the Tuesday. Then the next time, it was 21. The next time, it was 18, back down to the usual Tuesday crowd. Why? Because price was never the issue. When you're coming to a game on a Tuesday, the issue was, it's a school night for the kids, and there's another game on Friday, and I'm busy, and I'm tired, and I get home, and I got to make supper and go to the game. If there's demand and excitement, you could charge $50. If there's no demand, it doesn't matter if you let them in for free. So I think right now, given the demand and the nature of what's going on, you could charge $25. You could charge $30 for the people that really care, as long as it's reasonable. We're not talking NHL prices. Yeah. But price is the most overrated thing among marketers in junior hockey, I think, and sports in general. It's, do people want to go to the game? Don't even think about price, because once you start dropping it, as an example, then you're just creating an environment where people think that's what your product's worth. But
right.
I think
when you put that product on the ice, like you said, Shawn, when you put that product on the ice, it's obviously easier to sell if it's a good product. Case in point, Winnipeg will always cheer a team that's in first place, not a team that's in 8th place. But in the situation that we're in, we're also realizing communities are rallying around the efforts that a community is putting forth. And I think when you go to small towns, I was in Morden Winkler, I was in Selkirk, I've been in Beausejour, they're rallying around the efforts that are going forth in communities, and they want to see these things succeed, and they don't want to see them lost. So I do agree. And obviously, Ryan, you mentioned a very strong point about business being business. I mean, and not losing a nickel out of your pocket. A lot of people are doing the same. And in the GTA area, there's a lot of, I experienced the same thing in California. When you expected to see 400 or 500 fans to a junior game and you saw 70, you're wondering what's going on. And there's just the plain old fact that maybe there's just other things out there that people are more interested in, or they don't want to support what's on the ice. So we'll leave it at that. We'll come back second period. We're going to talk a little bit about how to bolster that portfolio for that kid that might get looked or might not get looked at here on the Coaches Parley. First period down. We're back at her here after 20. Ryan, I got to start with you because you've been dealing with a lot of different players, looking at portfolios, looking at filling out a roster. Harry, you've done the same this year especially. If a player doesn't look that great on the ice, what can they do, Ryan, to show that they are that great of a player and they should take a chance on you?
Just a simple age-old sentiment of work ethic, right? I mean, if they work hard and they're going to run through a brick wall for you, there's always time to give those guys that extra little bit of look. Maybe they're coming off an injury or something like that. But the other thing too is if their past coaches speak really highly of them, it's another person that you're going to want to, want to give the time and attention to. A lot of coaches that I know are not going to vouch for players that just don't belong. So, because their reputation in the hockey world is very important, and when somebody sticks their neck out for somebody, generally they work out. That's the way that I found, and just making sure that I always surround myself with good scouts and good recruiters and good advisors. Having good advisors, not just the 24-hour fly-by-night ones. You want to deal with the ones that are dealing with the better hockey players, on a daily basis. So those are some of the things that I did. And if a player brings work ethic every day and compete, I've always got time for those guys.
Shawn, you've probably interviewed, I don't know, 1,000 players, 1,500 players in your lifetime?
At least.
Give or take?
At least.
At least. How have you ever had a scout or a coach ask you about a player based on an interview that you've done with them and their psyche and their demeanor with you answering questions?
Not ask, but comment for sure. And I found it happened quite a lot with I'd done some series of interviews with bantam prospects before drafts and found they were listened to quite a bit, trying to get some insights and sort of see what how quick on their feet is that young player who doesn't have the experience doing interviews. How comfortable are they? Do they sound like a leader? I hear that a lot in interviews, whether you can kind of tell if someone sounds like a leader or they don't sound like a leader, if they project confidence or they don't project confidence. I think that stuff comes across quite a bit. How they, a lot of hockey players will give you the most generic stuff. And if a guy's giving you that generic Bull Durham stuff, then it's difficult to react one way or another.
Why did all of us smile right there? Because you know exactly what you're talking about, Shawn.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
You're not worried about that player, right? That player, you're like, okay, they can do the generic Bull Durham answers. They're fine. You don't know if they're a good teammate or not. You don't know if they're a good leader or not based on that. But when they stray from that, then you can get some insight into who that player thinks about. How do they react to a win or a loss? What's their mentality? I saw some guys who really surprised me how petulant they could get after a bad game, and some others who, I think you learn a lot more about a player sometimes after a bad loss, about what they're like in a room when you interview them than at any other time. And the guys who can stand there, take accountability, talk openly about what happened and move on, but still be frustrated, but move on. Those are the ones I think, okay, those guys are good in the room. The ones who are stars and come out there and sulk and whine, I think, I have a different thought about whether I want that guy to wear a letter on a future team at the next level.
So, Mike, you got a player that's cool and calm as a pillow, as the other side of the pillow, as Stuart Scott would say. You got a player that gives you the generic Bull Durham. I'm just here to help the hockey team out, and the good Lord willing, things will work out. I mean, how many times? Every time I've done an interview, I think Harry's even seen me look at him when I do an interview. I'm like, really? He just gave that answer? How do you
just
give?
Just got to play our game, right, Harry? You just got to play our game.
Just got to play our game, stick to focus, stay between the lanes, all that jazz. And
up on that.
Pucks on net, stop in the front. Yeah, work, do what coach says. Do what's best for the club. all those just beautiful lines, Mike. You ever tried to take a player and just take them away from that and say, okay, give me your real answer here? Like,
two quick stories. I worked in Brandon in the late 90s. And when you have to interview Kelly McCrimmon every other day, you learn not to mail in your questions. And so one of the better compliments I've got over my career from other media people is that more than one have said that they like my interviews because I don't mail in the questions. And sometimes when I see some of these interviews, the person interviewing the player doesn't give the player much of a chance to give an honest answer because the media person's mailing it in too. Like he's asking cliched type questions. And that was always something that I learned from dealing with Kelly is that Kelly had no time for that. And I learned that very quickly. And so I've always applied that throughout my career. But I can tell you, like I get asked a lot by college scouts about players. And I'll give you one quick story was one year I had a scout say, give me a list of 5 or 6 guys in your comments or whatever. So I did. He called me about 10 minutes later and he says, I noticed that you left player A off your list and he's like the leading scorer in your league. How come you didn't include him? And I said, that's because he's been blackballed in another junior A league because he burned the Billett's house down and I didn't feel he'd represent your program. And so those things matter. And I think, and I've talked about it a little bit on previous shows. You've really got to watch your character and you've really got to watch some of your off ice demeanor and how you carry yourself and how do you behave at the Billett's house, and like that's an extreme, burning the house down, right? But how do you behave in the community? And that's one of the things that, that I do get asked about when scouts are looking for guys, because a scout can decide on he doesn't need me to tell him he's a good player. He's already made that determination. He's looking for something that he doesn't see on the ice. So how is he, do you know him that well? Do you know the family? Do you think that they'd be a good fit for our program? I mean, if the guy is from, pick a village in Saskatchewan, will he fit on the Minnesota Golden Gophers? Maybe not, right? Maybe. So those are some of the things that they're looking for, and in particular, they also, hey, is he? Do you think he would be a dedicated student? Is he gonna last academically? So these are all things that I think sometimes hockey players and their families, although they're getting better at it, they overlook it. They focus too much on the on-ice stuff. I remember that, he's a referee now, actually, Peter McDougall, who used to play for the Weyburn Red Wings, and Peter could skate like the wind, but he didn't put up very many points. And I remember when he got his scholarship, I had a couple people within the league say, how did he get a scholarship? And I said, because he skates really fast, which means he can keep up at any level. He's also a great guy. He's going to be no problem on any team. And he's incredibly smart. So he's going to stay in school for however long he needs to be in school. And sometimes that matters just as much as your ability to play the game.
But you mentioned questions, Mike. And just for any broadcasters or young broadcasters who are watching this, and I'm not saying I was never guilty of these things, but please do not make a statement and then hand the mic over. This happens all the time. It drives me absolutely crazy. It's not a question. And please try to avoid asking yes or no questions. If you do those things and you get bad answers, that's your fault. That's not the player's fault. And you'll have coaches, especially, that'll bail you out of those questions. But if they do, it's not because you're a good interviewer. And if you get a bad answer, it's because it was a bad question or not even a question.
I think
always after a couple losses, the old so give me your overall thoughts on the weekend. What's the best you can come up with? My overall thoughts, it wasn't good. I mean,
my first thought would be that's a terrible question to start off with. What's your second one?
Yeah.
Well, and I saw I'm a big football guy. So the Houston Texans are 1-6 or whatever they are, and I don't think anybody I think I saw 10 questions for JJ Watt. Not a one of them was intelligent. Yeah. And I think you're a professional media person. you've got, the best defensive football player in the world sitting in front of you, and you can't come up with an intelligent question. And so, I blame media a lot for a lot of these canned answers that you hear. And I think, that would be, something that I would say to a young media person too, is that, when you're doing your intermissions or things of that nature, I know it's common to think to yourself, well, you know what, I got to fill 15 minutes. But you want your listener or your viewer to stay engaged for that 15 minutes. Yeah. So why don't you, introduce to the player a little bit? I mean, I always like something, sometimes, when I do interviews, I won't talk about hockey hardly at all. I'll talk about, like Flin Flon had 3 Alaskans on their team a couple of years ago. And I remember, Caleb Moretz, who's another really good dude. And I spent an entire intermission with him just talking about, what's it feel like to be like maybe the only player in Flin Flon Bomber history to move south to play for Flin Flon. And you learn a lot about a guy when you sort of throw him that kind of bone, and you recognize he's got a bit of a personality, and he can hit a home run with that answer.
I always like when, I have no media experience, but I always like when I get asked about a specific moment in a game, not a goal, but when the game, hey, when this happened, what you thought? Because they're watching the game. They're not just, the score was 5-2. They had 3 power play goals. What do you think of your peak? Just a generic box score question, but something in the game, a big hit or a block, and then I'm like, oh, okay, you're watching, you're prepared, and you actually want to know something specific. So
if you can ask the same question every single game that you asked, then it's not a question that's going to get you much, right? And I understand what you're saying about the generic question. I don't mind it as much at the beginning of a post-game interview, because you want to know, sort of what their mindset is at the beginning and sort of where are they leaning before you take it in another direction. But beyond that, too many times you listen to a post-game and that question could apply to literally all 70 of those games. And in that case, you're going to get a generic answer to a generic question.
Harry, I'm trying to think the number of times I've interviewed you prior to this year. Have I ever answered you or given you a yes or no question?
No, I can't remember.
Except for just now?
You just did right now.
Ramble,
Except for just now, exactly.
Even a yes or
I
no
was seeing if Mike and Shawn were picking up on that, because I don't know if they were listening there, but I don't think I've ever given Harry a yes or no question. And I think we've talked more about other things besides hockey when we've sat down and chatted. So I agree, finding out the character of somebody through a broadcaster's mindset. I know Harry's asked me a bit of a synopsis on some players that they've played against in the past, and it's been a fun bit of a relationship you build with some of these players and coaches and some of these scouts that you talk to, obviously, because they do appreciate your feedback and they do value your feedback as well, to see how these kids and these young men act off the ice. We're going to come back with our third period, the most important part. We're going to end this game off with a question, as all of us are going to put on our GM hats and act like a GM for a little bit here on the Coaches Parlay. Wow! So we're done 2 down to the last period in our final shift. This third period is going to be a gooder. That much I know, because all of us love playing GM. Some of us played GM in the past. Ryan, I'm going to start with you and I'm going to end with you on this segment. So you are a GM in the Western Hockey League. You are told that you're going to have 3 or 4 players that might play junior hockey in their province. They might come back December 20th or not. What is your stance as being a Western Hockey League GM, hoping they come back, allowing these players to play in a lower ranking in their own province, and that relationship that may or may not transpire for the rest of the season?
Well, if they're my third or fourth line players, I think it's great. They can go there, get minutes. I also feel bad though for any of those kids that are playing on the tier 2 team that maybe these guys are taking their spots for a little while. At the end of the day, some of the kids playing tier 2 have different goals and ambitions, and their goals are not to play in the Western Hockey League. They want to play college hockey. So having a couple of drop downs eat up some of their ice time and their development could hurt them. So I mean, as a GM in the Western League, I would have a bit of a heart like that to go, well, I don't know, maybe do I want these guys to get that additional ice time and be selfish about it, or do I look at the big picture and go, well, it might hurt the development of maybe somebody else, and maybe those guys would be better suited to just stick and train around here where our team is and be around the guys. Maybe that would be better. So I'm kind of torn, but if I had to make a decision right now, especially in the times that we are, I would just be sticking with the kids that I know are going to be there for me through the duration of the season.
Shawn, you're the GM of a team in the SJ. Pick one. Pick Swift Current.
We don't have a team.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
I hope we don't end up with an SJ team. Not that the product's not great, but that would have meant something bad happened with the WHL team.
So you're Swift Current. You got to, in case you can't be Swift Current, so pick another team. I was thinking the WHL side of things, but how would you feel if you were going to be bringing players from the Dub to an SJ squad, knowing that they may leave December 20th?
I think it's important to choose the right kind of player. First of all, I think if you bring in the kind of player that can help make your players better, that they can get better by practicing with and picking up some of their practice habits, by playing with and picking up some of their habits on the ice, by being put in positions to succeed by playing with those players. And if you can improve your players with those players coming in, are they good in the room? Do they set a good example? Do they bring constructive leadership to your team? Then I think it can be a real positive. The other side of it is, quite simply, if a player is good enough to help you be in a better position in the standings, that is going to help your team moving forward. If you're going to be in first instead of second, so you get home ice advantage in the league final because that player was there, but they're not there in the end, well, they still got you to a better position. Now, I wouldn't have 5, 6, 7, 8 of those guys, because then your team chemistry is destroyed and you haven't built up a team over the time that those guys were there before they go back to the WHL. But 1 or 2 key ones, absolutely. But again, they have to have the right mindset. I don't want somebody coming down to a junior A team that played in the WHL thinking, all right, it's point night for me, and I'm just going to go out there and dangle everybody and show what a talent I am. If they're coming out to work hard and get better and make their teammates better and fit in, then I'm open to that, because the guys who will be bumped back are guys that probably were borderline anyway and might benefit from still playing some midget hockey or developing in other ways.
Is it better to give them more ice time if they're being bumped down, Mike, knowing that you've got 4 or 5 Dub players on your team in Yorkton or Melville, and falsifying that playoff position when regular season is over because you've won 6 out of 8 games because you've had a bolstered lineup?
So I've got many different thoughts on this, and by the time I'm done answering, you're not going to know whether I'm in favor of it or not, because I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping the Dodger game gets extra innings if you have that many thoughts. Just put it that way.
Well, no, look, on one hand, my first thought is that, so in Yorkton's case, they've added 5 guys. All 5 are from Yorkton. Because all 5 are from Yorkton, I tend to be a lot more forgiving of that, because they're your hometown guys, and where else are they going to play? Now, the flip side of that is you're Nolan Meyer. You're a 20-year-old goalie from the Saskatoon Blades. What do you have to gain here? I mean, Jacob Herman is an 18-year-old rookie. He's already got a 35-save shutout. So when the Saskatoon Blades are ready to play and you can only use 3 20-year-olds, maybe I take Jacob Herman as an 18-year-old goalie and I trade Nolan Meyer, or I can't find a home for Nolan Meyer, and he ends up staying in Yorkton. Like Brett Kemp is another example. He's a 20-year-old, again, Yorkton kid, 40-goal man last year in the Western Hockey League. What makes a successful stint in the SJHL if he plays 15 games? 30 points? 15 goals in 15 games? If he's not the best player on the team, is it like some of these guys, I don't know, like I feel like they've got nothing to gain and everything to lose, aside from the fact they're going to stay in shape and they're going to be, able to play. Now, the Junior A guys, and I mentioned Herman as one of them, but there'll be other guys. It's a really good opportunity for them to see how they stack up against some really elite players in their age group. And lots of eyes are going to be on these guys through Hockey TV or whatever the case may be, whoever's broadcasting the games. And so it's how I would sell it to my other Junior A guys would be, look, we're bringing in these really good players. It's a chance for you to see where you measure up in comparison to these top players. And you may find out you're not that far off from some of these top guys. And in that case, it's going to help you down the road for your career. Shawn mentioned, you bring 5 guys in, you destroy the chemistry in your room. I tend to agree with him on that. So with Yorkton bringing in 5 guys and you've got a powerhouse team come Christmas, but they leave, what really do you have? Sure, it's great to have points in the standings, but are you a fraud? After all 5 guys leave, you've got 3 amazing goalies. The other goalie I didn't mention was Philip Bond. Well, he gave up 1 goal on Saturday. And so, how do you keep these 3 guys happy when all 3 should be playing? Do they end up playing 5 games each over the course of the first 15 or, and so again, I don't know where I fall on this because like I say, because they're Yorkton kids, I believe that the Terriers did the right thing by accepting them and letting them play. I just don't know how this ends, really. And I'm concerned for the team. I'm concerned for the 5 guys that are here because I feel like I said before, like they've got not a lot to gain and plenty to lose. I feel for committed Junior A guys who are going to get bumped. We hear all the time that, oh, well, the player doesn't want to commit. Well, if you don't want to commit to the player, why should the player commit to you? So, there's a whole bunch of things at play here. And so I don't know where I fall on it. I would say that if I was involved with a Junior A team and I didn't have any hometown major junior players, I would be thankful for that because I wouldn't want any. But if I'm Yorkton and I've got that many, yeah, I think you got to do the right thing and give them a place to play if they want to play.
Now, Mike, those 5 players that you mentioned that aren't on that playing roster, are they still part of the roster, or have they been pushed back to teams they played with in previous years? Or what do those developmental players, those guys that were on 3rd or 4th lines that aren't with the team right now, what is their position for this beginning of this season?
Well, my understanding is Yorkton brought a skeleton group to camp as it is, so I think they're gonna make 2 or 3 tops outright releases, and because of the COVID situation, a lot of teams are keeping 3 goalies. But the reality is that on most teams, the 3rd goalie is a practice goalie. On Yorkton, their 3 goalies are going to have to play. Like all 3 of them are very good. Like if I was to rank the top goaltenders in the SJHL and not include Meyer, the other 2 are 2 of the top 5 goalies in the league. And now they've got 3 of probably the top 5 goalies in the league. So I don't know how they're, and you know how goalies are, right? Like it's tough to keep 3 of them happy in a practice, let alone games. So there's a big challenge here. But I do think, because of this, the situation that we're in, these 5 guys want to play, and as long as they've got a good attitude, like as Shawn mentioned, as long as they're not going to, think it's point night, or I'm going to toe drag all night, or take stupid penalties and stuff like that. As long as they come in with the right attitude, it can help you. And I think, for some other guys on the team that can use this as a measuring stick to see where they're at in their developmental curve.
Harry, you had a problem this past week. We got how many defense on the roster, and you got to tell how many they're not playing this weekend, and all this. You have to deliver the bad news. It's not the GM that delivers the bad news. you got to play Reg Dunlop here a little bit. You're not playing, but you're coaching. How do you tell the boys you're going to switch the lineup here? I'll let you know when you're in.
Well, I'll be honest. Like the last 3 nights have been kind of sleepless. I mean, we got 9 guys, 9, and they're all junior A caliber players. There isn't like a single guy. I would say 6 veterans and 5 veterans and 3 18-year-old, first year players, and it's tough. Like we have 3 Western League cases. They're all different. We have a 16-year-old goalie who's property of Swift Current. They let him stay here for the year. I think it's best for his development. He's in grade 11. He's local. He's playing lots for us. We have Justin Svensson, whose younger brother's on the team, and he was on the team last year. He was over a point-a-game guy. He was a bubble player with Swift, and he's been skating with us since the start of camp. So all he did was change his equipment over, and now he's in the lineup. And now we needed a stay-at-home big left-handed defenseman, and we had a guy on our list over the last couple of years coming back from Spokane, Jordan Tudley. He fills a need, and he's 19, and he might be here next year. So I'm happy with that. Those work, but you should see the names coming across our desk of guys who might be available, and it's like your eyes light up for a second, going, "I get to coach that kid." And you look at your board of guys who've been here for a month and a half, and you're going, "Okay, he's only playing 12 games." And his agent has said December 20th, like, he'll return his equipment and he will shake your hand and you'll never see him again. So you're kind of like, well, great. I mean, they're not going to draw any more fans to your building. You can only have so many. But it's like, again, you could rack up the wins. But here's the thing. Some of these guys that are coming back aren't lighting it up. And people assume that we're going to walk in and be first liners. Well, that's not the case, unfortunately. If you're a fringe player on the Western League, you're a good player. But you're walking into a team where guys know the league, guys have been here. Like, you walk into any new team for the first time, there's an adjustment period, and you don't score in your first 2 games and get any points, and there's 6 days between games, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, like, these teams will commit something to me, and I'm not scoring, and the other guys are looking at him going, we brought him in to score, he's not doing anything. As a coach, it's a lot to process, and our biggest problem is, we lost 2 close games to Virden. We were winning 3-2, took a 7-minute major with 10 minutes left. They score 2, we lose. The next night, our best player, back-to-back nights, our top 2 players get kicked out for majors, and we lose on the PK. So we're right there. We don't need to make drastic changes, whereas Vernon's bringing in 3 new guys, and we're going, their power play is pretty good. Which 3 guys are getting bumped? They got great chemistry, and I'm sitting here working on the PK, and I'm going, well, they're going to add in these 3 guys. The setup's going to be the same, but these guys have never practiced it. So maybe the first game is a freebie. Maybe they're feeling it out, and we can take advantage. So we don't need to go tit for tat. We don't need to. They got 5, we got 5. Let's just ride with what we have, and we're a confident group over here. But if you're a GM and these players are available, it's hard not to be enticed. You're putting that name next to your organization, and it's kind of a cool thing. Like I said, some of these names that have popped up, like, you think, really? And you're going, like, a first rounder in the NHL, and you go, he's from Winnipeg and he needs a team. And everyone came up, and you go, okay, like, that's like, how serious is he? Well, he's pretty serious. How do you say no? So it's interesting. It's case by case, but
I've got an idea how to say no. You just give them a non-open-ended question.
I mean, it's 9:30, and I'm still in the office, as you can see, looking at the whiteboard with 26 numbers, trying to figure out who goes where, and it's tough.
I was going to come
what
back.
Mary's saying there, I always used to think, in football terms, I always think, like, why wouldn't you participate in the combine? Like, some of these guys that say, you know what, I'm not going to go to the combine. I always think, just go to the combine. But now, with this situation that's happening in hockey, I understand it now, because some guys are so highly touted and thought of. You've got nothing to gain and everything to lose. So when Harry says, well, we're noticing that a couple guys aren't lighting it up. We thought they might light it up. They're not lighting it up. Well, that's great for junior A hockey, because on one hand, it's like, oh, well, maybe this isn't as easy as you thought. But on the other hand, you've got people watching you and going, I don't know if I want to bring this guy back. He's not playing very well. So then, right, so now you look at it from the junior A general manager's perspective, and it's like, okay, but now I might have the guy all year. And so, like, so I don't know. Like, I don't know where I fall on this. I don't know if I'm in favor of it. I don't know if I'm opposed to it. I'm glad that I'm not the one making the decision. Let's put it that way. But I am glad that by and large, people are getting a chance to play, and they're trying to work together to figure things out for certain kids.
But if you flip that on the other side, what do you have to gain? To me, if you're a guy like you mentioned, Kemp, he's a 20-year-old, hasn't been drafted yet, doesn't have his future figured out. This is the year where you have to go out and prove that you deserve a chance to play at the pro level. So if you go into junior A and you buy in and you're a great teammate and all the reviews are good and you do all the little things, even though you could think you're better than this because you succeeded and had 40 goals at the Western League level, the way that you benefit from this is by proving what kind of a team guy you are, by proving your work ethic won't change if you're playing in different situations, that you take it seriously and that you're a good teammate. You know, all those things that you can do by going into those situations and taking it seriously and being the right kind of player in that scenario could really benefit a player, because all of a sudden they have a whole organization and a whole league maybe that's going to stand up and talk to scouts and say, can you believe the way Brett Kemp came in here and was the hardest working guy on our roster, even though he could have scored without being? You know, that to me is what you have to gain by going into that situation.
And the thing is, Yorkton, like that was the special birth year in Yorkton as far as hockey's concerned. Like, they've added 5 guys. We mentioned so Kemp and Meyer, Jackson Berezowski is a younger forward who, you know, I hope he never comes back. You know, he's a really good major junior player. Keyshawn Gervais and Carson Miller are the 5 guys. And then I haven't mentioned Caden Korzak, who was a second-round NHL draft pick, Ryder Korzak, his younger brother, and then, as Shawn knows very well, Caleb and Aiden Bullich. And so they could add 4 more guys from Yorkton if they wanted to, or if the players got cleared or whatever the case may be. And so like how do you handle that? Like, if you're Yorkton, I really don't know how you say no at this point. You can't.
Ryan, I want to finish with you because I told you to play the GM of a WHL. Now I want you to be the GM of a SJ team. And you've got these 19 or 20-year-old players that say, you know what, I want to finish the year out. I want to be that community guy. I want to be that character player for my team. We got a good thing going in. They've bought into the program. What doors open up for them if they've aged out in terms of university, college? And how great is that to have that feeling knowing that you gave that opportunity, not for a step back, but for a revisit to a better potential playing opportunity for these players? Because sometimes the dub doesn't just pan out for everybody. I mean, maybe they've realized they've got a second wind in the MJ or the SJ or in, you know, Tier 2 hockey in Ontario. Something clicks with them, that switch gets flipped and those doors open. How do you help that player get to the next level in a different tangent then?
Well, obviously the amount of schooling package that he's going to get from his time playing in the Western League will play into that. If he does produce and does what he needs to do in the SJ, then he's going to have a lot of opportunities for Canadian universities, and he's going to be able to utilize that schooling package. The disappointing part that I've always said, and I've had these conversations with a lot of parents whose kids are bubble major junior hockey players. I always say to them, I go, do you want to be a 4th line guy, play 2 minutes a night so that you could tell all your friends and post on social media that you played major junior hockey? Or would you like to be a go-to guy at the Tier 2 level, be a good piece to the puzzle, get the minutes that you need, and maybe down the road a Division I school comes knocking on your door? Now, again, is all the money going to be there for you if you were in that scenario? But for me, there's so many options for guys at the Tier 2 level. And I think that, and especially in Western Canada, and I'm sorry, guys, I know majority of you are, and I'm from there, but it's Western League, and that's all that gets shoved down a lot of kids' throats. And I think that a lot of those Tier 2 junior A leagues are slowly starting to do a much better job of teaching the kids what the options are available to them other than playing major junior. And for me, I got a 5-year-old son. And unless he's going to be a top 6 forward at the major junior level, he ain't playing there. He ain't going there to be a third, fourth line bubble player. He's going to get an education, because we all know that there's not a lot of opportunities for everybody to make a living full-time in this game as a player. So you need a background in education. And where do you get that? The NCAA level. And I'm a proponent of it, and that's where I push. And the sky's the limit for those 20-year-olds. They could play university in Canada. They could go play in the Southern Pro League maybe, or travel over to Europe and play some of the lower-end European leagues that are available and maybe work their way up the ladders. But the sky's the limit for a lot of those guys. But you limit your options the minute that you step foot on those major junior opportunities.
My counter to that, though, often, and Mike, you spoke to this a little earlier, a lot of times there's that sense that a guy who's a third or fourth liner in the Western Hockey League is going to go to Junior A and just tear it up. And usually a guy who's a third or fourth liner all the way through his 19-year-old season, all of a sudden at 20 is going to play Junior A. He's not the guy who's going to go out and get a Div 1 scholarship anyway. He's not the guy who's going to come back and put up 75 points in Junior A. And they think sometimes they're going to be that player. And I can tell you, when I was in Trail, a few guys came back like that to the Smoke Eaters and to other BCHL teams, and they go, oh, we got a dub guy, and he's going to come in and play first line, first power play. But he's not that kind of player. So actually, by going to the Western League and playing that third or fourth line role and earning a guaranteed 3-4 years of education that they can cash in on at the Canadian university level, they're further ahead than they would have been in Junior A the whole time, because that type of player is very rarely getting the full ride to the NCAA. Maybe, I've seen those players before. They typically end up being the tier 2 university players. They're getting, the secondary type scholarships, the small pieces of it paid, and the university ends up being more expensive in the States than it would have been to use your Canadian scholarship money and stay in Canada. So I think if you're a guy who can play top 6 minutes in Junior A, but you can't play top 6 minutes in the Western Hockey League, yeah, sure, I understand that argument. But if you're going to be a two-way grind them out type of guy anyway, then I'm not sure that's true.
Well, and we could do a whole segment on it, but I think each player has to look at their own individual circumstance. If you're not a good student or you don't even care about school and you got an opportunity to go to the Western League, you should go. Absolutely, 100%. If your dream all along has been to play in the Western League and you get an opportunity to do it, do it. And then I think the other thing too, which we don't talk about enough, is that what do you want to do if you do not end up having hockey as a career? So sometimes the degrees that you get in the States don't translate if you come back to Canada. So if you're going to go down to the U.S., hopefully you meet your future bride down there and you stay there. So there's a lot of different things at play. I think each player has their own individual unique circumstance. And the type of player, sometimes you're better suited for the NCAA game than a major junior game. I think there's a whole lot of things there, and if you get the right advice from the right people, you can make those decisions appropriately.
Mike's been reading my biography off air in regards to getting degrees in the States that don't amount for a pile of dung up here in Canada. I'll say it that way properly. I'm loving talking to you 5 or you 4 gentlemen every couple of weeks. Let's get to the big finish, the final shift. Let's start with you, Harry. What would kind of final message would you like to tell the boys or the parents or the coaches for these next upcoming weeks? Being safe for Halloween, perhaps? Floor is yours.
Yeah. I mean, we're in our little bubble here. Life's good. Life's normal. I'm lucky that, this COVID isn't affecting me anymore really so much. I'm good. I can go to the rink every day. I'm here 10, 12 hours a day some nights. And, it's good. And as far as Halloween goes, we're in Verdun wearing our bright orange jerseys. So looking forward to that. And, yeah, everything's good. I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks again.
There we go. Mike?
Well, just because I'm that guy, I'm going to hand out Gatorade and pop on Halloween. And I'm going to advertise it.
As long as you're not making your own muffins or your own cookies and wrapping them up in their own tin foil, Mike, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sure. I mentioned earlier in the show, it was very therapeutic for me to be back in a hockey rink and calling a game, which is what I love to do. And I hope it lasts. There's still a lot of hurdles for the SJHL to get through to their regular season. The reality is that they're going to need more than 150 fans. And I think, the government would be wise to allow these people who have chosen to be guinea pigs, for lack of a better term, let them do it. I mean, we got the Western Hockey League, we've got other events that want to be held. So why don't you let the SJHL get a start on it? Let's see what we can do right. Let's see what we can improve upon, and go from there. And I hope that sanity does prevail at some point. And I am seeing signs of that, and I don't want to get too excited about it, but I do, I think it would be incredibly disappointing to go backwards at this point.
Shawn?
For me, after all of this talk that we've had to go through and all the conversations about politics that I can't really influence and health factors that I can't possibly understand, the whole thing just kind of got summed up in a fun way for me when my daughter's skating started up again. I was able to take her to the rink, and she skated backwards for the first time and came up to me after, beaming with joy, saying, "Daddy, did you see I went backwards? I went backwards." And we can, argue till we're blue in the face about how this is going to be and how it's supposed to be. But for that moment, all I cared about was that my daughter was thrilled and excited and sharing that time with the other skaters on the ice and getting better at something and learning discipline and all that stuff that sports brings, that smile on her face. And I don't know how things are going to go, but I just hope that the thousands and millions of kids across Canada get to have that smile as much as possible this year.
Ryan, the last word goes to you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that you guys are getting to enjoy some hockey, and I'm sure it's awesome to be able to go to the rink and do your day to day. I miss that for sure, but I don't see things loosening up out here in Ontario. I know that some of the teams in the CCHL are planning some skates, and they think they're going to get started. I know the Junior B League here, they're looking at it. They've got a schedule that starts December 2nd, which I can't see happening. I know that more than 60% of the PJHL, which is the Junior C League out here, which is ginormous and is a good level of hockey, I know that more than 60% of the teams have already opted out and are not going to play this year. And like I said, the OGA earlier, they've got a December 27th training camp opening up plan, and they want to start January 15th. But the way it's going to be is 4-on-4, no face-offs, penalty shots for penalties, and you score a goal, you clear the blue line. Like that's what hockey's going to look like here in Ontario this year. So I hope to God that that's not the case, because it's ridiculous, but yeah, I feel for all the hockey players here in Ontario that are looking for opportunities, and my phone's starting to ring off the hook for guys trying to find alternative opportunities. Whether they got to go down to the States to play in some of the junior leagues down there or whatever. But there's a lot of kids here in Ontario that are looking to play hockey. That's for sure.
Have you got your little guy on the ice, Ryan?
I'm sorry?
Is your little guy on the ice skating at all, or not yet?
4 days a week. Guys on the ice 4 days a week.
Oh, boy. That's got to put a nice smile on your face.
Yep, it's fun to have him buzzing around there. He's a 2015 birth year, and I get out and skate with his U7 group twice a week, and that's about my sanctuary right now. I do miss dealing with the older guys and the grind, but it's kind of nice to have a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old smiling at you and having a lot of fun. So it's a lot less stress, that's for sure.
Have they signed their letters of intent yet?
No letters of intent. We haven't had a lot of scouts out, and
I got a good agent if you need one.
Yeah, well, I hear that there might be some agents kicking around here, maybe watching online right now.
Absolutely, no doubt. It's great to see the grassroots efforts coming back. Like I said, we all missed. It'd be nice to see just everybody enjoy the sanctuary and the happiness and that mental health come back because of sport. And like you said, Mike, it's great to see or hear your voice. Harry, obviously you've lost your voice behind the bench a couple of times this year already. And I mean, Shawn, you know how best as anybody, nothing like calling a good game and a game-winning goal like you have in the past. So we hope those times are coming very soon and we get to see more hockey on the ice here. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Happy Halloween. Stay safe. Remember, if you see baking, don't pick it up, Mike. Leave it alone. Much as good as it looks, just leave it alone. I'll be doing the same. I think I leave out one can of pop and one big chocolate bar for the one person that comes by my house. And that's it. So, and if it's there at the end of the night, then I'm good to go. I got a bedtime snack. We'll leave it at that. Coaches Parley, episode 5. Check us out in a couple of weeks. We'll hopefully have some more news and some updates. And maybe we'll talk. We won't talk Trump and Pence. And no, we won't go there. We won't go there. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching here on Amateur Sports TV.